Amid turmoil at Duluth Marshall, Chloe Johnson, the #2 overall player in her entire high school class, is transferring to Proctor. And a source with direct knowledge of the situation tells me several former players leaving the program are in thought of former coach Shibuzu Asuchiku's departure. And the reason Johnson left was over Duluth Marshall might not being able to have a team next season. As it stands today, only one player is set to return to Duluth Marshall. We're told the way in which the transition was made frustrated parents and players, causing a max exodus. Duluth Marshall is one of the premier girls basketball programs, and one of their alums, Gianna Neepkins, is currently in the WNBA. And they lose not just one of the best basketball players on their team or in this region or state, but Chloe Johnson is maybe the best 16-year-old girls basketball player in the world. She's been playing varsity basketball since 7th grade. Over 4 seasons, she's already scored over 3,000 points. Last year, she averaged 31 points per game and took the Hilltoppers to the state finals. She dropped 49 on Proctor in the section semis to get there. And now the balance of power shifts as ESPN's #2 overall player in the class of 2028 will don the green and white. We will have more updates on this developing story on our website at northernnewsnow.com.